I've fulfilled my one role here, and that is to make sure that we capture this session. So I'll start by welcoming all of you wonderful people to the launch of the SCLA fund of the 2025-2026 round. It's our fifth round. And we are delighted to have our three project leads with us today, who are going to give us an overview of their projects and any opportunities or any ways for engagement, and just give you guys a chance to ask them questions about what they plan on doing and opportunities like that. So it's an absolute pleasure to introduce these three amazing projects. We're now on the fifth round of the fund. We have at least one more year of guaranteed funding in the current model. Applications will open in June for the next round. So now is a good time to get thinking about projects and things you might apply for. And if there's any ideas you have, the earlier you get in touch with us, the better. It'll be open from June to September. So plenty of time to think about those projects, but do get them in this year. It's the last year we can guarantee funding. And it is another year of being able to apply for £60,000, and we encourage you to apply for that top end. So please keep that in mind. That's the admin side done. So I'm about to hand over to the project leads. But just to give you an overview of the what we have in mind today, we've got about 45 minutes together. This is just for the UCLAN, so we haven't invited anyone else. So this is just a chance for you guys to reconnect and hear about the projects and give each other energy in the years ahead for the project leads. Each of the three project leads will have about 10 minutes to introduce their project. And then we will save the Q&A until the end. We'll have about 15 minutes together to ask questions or identify opportunities. If you would like to ask questions or have any suggestions as the presentations go, please do drop them into the chat. I'd like to ask for those of you who aren't presenting to keep yourself on mute. This is being recorded so that we can share it with the wider network, and that will just enhance the presentation for those of us that are here and then for those who are catching up afterwards. I will stop waffling now and hand over. So I'm going to start by handing over to Luciana, who's from the 2013 to 14 cohort. This is her second time at receiving SCLA funding. So if you have applied before, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't do again. Luciana is proof that we do refund, and we're really excited about the project that she has for us over the next couple of years in the Brazilian Pantanal. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. I'm going to hand straight over to Luciana to tell us more about her project.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Shelley. It's really good to be here again. It's really good to reconnect to so many of you. I will try to speak very fast because I have so much to share. We are really excited. I'm also happy to see some of my colleagues here from Shalana Esperança. Can you just confirm you can see my screen? I need someone to say, 'cause I can't see you. Is it working? Okay. Okay, so I will do a presentation slightly different today because our proposal to the SCLA Fund was to expand a work we began doing about 2 years ago in the Brazilian Pantanal. So the project title is Restoring Land and Knowledge and Building a Network of Indigenous Seedling Producers throughout the Cerrado and Pantanal. So for those that are not familiar with the Pantanal is the largest tropical wetland on Earth. It has more than 16 million hectares that spreads across Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay in the heart of South America. But unfortunately, in past years, the landscape of the Pantanal has changed dramatically as we began to experience severe drought and also fires. Some indigenous peoples being hard hit, with some of them losing up to 80% of their territories. So what is going on? So just to give you an understanding of the problem we are facing here. Ooh, I don't know why. Okay, this map is not showing for some reason, but it was supposed to show you how the Pantanal has lost a lot of its superficial water. In fact, more than 70% of the superficial water in the Pantanal has been lost in the past decades. And the Pantanal is the Brazilian biome that dried and burned the most in the past 40 years. And just as a reminder, this is a wetland. Although it's marked by drier seasons and wet seasons, it shouldn't be burning as much and recurrently. And the loss of superficial water is not only a consequence of climate change. Of course, we are having changes in rain patterns, we're having heat waves, but it's also very closely related with land use change, because we've been seeing an increase in deforestation in the surrounding Cerrado, where the rivers that flow to the Pantanal are born, but also within the Pantanal itself. And then I brought this map just to show that, similar to what happens in the Amazon, that I'm sure most of you have heard about with the arch of deforestation, the Pantanal lives something very similar. As the biome starts to dry, it becomes possible for monocultures, for intensive cattle ranching to invade the floodplain. So we also have an arch that is moving from outside towards inside this precious wetland. And just to give an idea, in the past 10 years, from 1995 to 2004, the Pantanal lost more than 500,000 hectares, which, just a sense of comparison, London is about 159,000 hectares. So we're talking about something like more than 3 times the size of London lost only in the past 10 years. And what we know is that deforestation is intimately related to droughts, because as you lose native vegetation, the river springs and the superficial water starts to disappear. The droughts also increase deforestation, because then it's possible for monocultures, for intensive cattle ranching to occur, and they all lead to fires. And then one important thing to note in terms of the social dynamics of the peoples that live in the Pantanal is that standing between the fires and even greater catastrophes are firefighters. And the majority of firefighters in Brazil are indigenous peoples. So just for you to have an understanding, more than 50% of firefighters in Brazil are indigenous. So during the dry season, they are hired across the Brazil, not only in the Pantanal. More than 50% of them indigenous, more than 70% either indigenous or from traditional communities. They are temporarily hired only during the dry or fire seasons, and their leadership is very well recognized in and beyond the territories. They are experts, prepared men and women that, unfortunately, in the raining season become unemployed. They lose their jobs because they no longer act as firefighters. This is going to be very crucial information for what is about to happen. At the same time, we know that the raining season is when restoration efforts should be applied. And the restoration in the Pantanal is still very embryonic, but it's promising, because we know that globally, the restoration market is expected to surpass like $20 billion by 2030. But in the Pantanal, in Brazil, and I think this question is worth asking globally, who is benefiting from it? Because the idea for our project began actually in 2021, when we heard about local NGOs purchasing seedlings to restore the Pantanal from São Paulo, from the southeast. So we thought, why can't we provide the infrastructure, enhance local knowledge of indigenous people, so they can lead the restoration efforts within their own territories? It's a win-win-win, right? We make restoration happen in the Pantanal. We make sure it's led by indigenous people, and it's happening majority within their territories that have been lost to degradation or fires. And we can also create an income for these people that are unemployed during the rainy season. So we thought, we can restore native vegetation, we can protect rivers and water springs, we can combine ancestral knowledge with academic knowledge, we can provide alternative livelihoods, we can increase the participation of women in local economies, because women are the main drivers, especially of seed collections in these communities. Then we can employ the indigenous firefighters during the rainy season. So how did we do that? So we began with a pilot project, identifying an indigenous territories for a pilot. And those are steps that we have to repeat every time we want to do and escalate this, right? So we identify the territory, we mobilize the indigenous firefighters, we create the plant nursery. So we provide the infrastructure they need to produce the seedlings. We purchase and deliver all the equipment needed for seedling production and for planting. We train men and women on everything. So we conduct workshops from seed collection to the maintenance of restoration areas. We plant the seedlings together. Then we also create a space in which we welcome volunteers, we welcome indigenous schools, we welcome partners to join efforts. We associate that with a small seed bank, which is basically this gigantic refrigerator freezer that we maintain species of ecological, nutritional, and cultural value for those communities. And then we begin removing invasive species, restoring areas that have been burned or degraded. And we focus on springs that communities want to restore. So this is the first area we did in Limão Verde, which is a spring that they saw disappear and now they saw reappear, which is really nice. And then for the pilot project, we saw that in less than 1 year, the community alone doubled the size of the plant nursery because it became small. We increased the production capacity and we saw them sell and plant literally with us and without us thousands of seedlings, making an income while also recovering land lost to fires, drought, degradation. And then now, with the support of the CLA fund, we will be able to take from the paper a dream that we had of not only creating one plant nursery, but actually building a network of indigenous plant nurseries and people involved with restoration in the Pantanal. So with the support of the SCLA fund specifically, we will expand our program to include 3 new indigenous communities, strengthening the ecological restoration efforts while also maintaining it indigenous-centered. We will build the 3 new plant nurseries, and we start with about 80 square meters, which is enough for them to produce about 15,000 seedlings per year. We provide all the necessary inputs from soils to the tubes, to the working trays, like everything. And we provide also the inputs to produce 10,000 seedlings per year per nursery at least. So they have a capacity of 15,000, but we commit that with the support that we will give, they will be able to produce at least 10,000. We will expand the number of species. So nowadays we're working with 12 species of plants in our seed banks. Now we're going to expand to 30 species, combining native species for biodiversity and ecosystem function, but also those that are fast growing, that shade the area so the others can grow better. We will also conduct this 5-chapter training program. So like I said, we do the workshops, and this is essential because although they have the ancestral knowledge, there are some species that are harder to sprout because you need to go through breaking seed dormancy, either chemical breaking or physical breaking, the seedling production, the part that we need to hard off the plants. So we prepare the seedlings for the field conditions, remembering that the Pantanal is this biome of extremes weather, and then the planting and maintaining the restoration areas itself. So we will deliver the workshops to at least 60 participants across the 3 territories, so 20 firefighters and women at least in each, ensuring this knowledge transfer, not only from academia to indigenous firefighters and communities, but also from them to us, as those spaces become very rich space of exchange of knowledges. And then, of course, we purchase, install, and manage the seed bank. So each community has its own cold chambers, with a capacity of about 3/4 of a ton in terms of weight. But the idea is also that with this network, they are able to exchange seeds and seedlings, depending on which territory perform better in producing and maintaining different species. And this, when we think about a network, this is really important because we are talking, as I said in the beginning, about an area that is about 15 million hectares big. So meaning that even within the Pantanal, they are very different phytophysiognomies. They are very different, almost like sub-biomes and characteristics that each of these communities face. So it's really important for them to have this opportunity to exchange knowledge, seeds, seedlings among them as well. Sorry, can I continue? Okay. So I'm about to finish already. I just want to bring something that for me it's quite important, especially because I saw that there are some of my team members from Shalom Esperança in the room, but also people that might have applied before, not have received the funding from SCLA, or as Shelley said, it's the second time that Shalana gets the fund. I think I pretty much applied every year since the first. So I just wanted to bring a little bit of this timeline to those that are applying or trying to secure this fund. It was in 2021 when we dreamed about this project on the first time that we actually put it on paper. And it was only 2024 that we got support for this pilot project. And then in late 2025, we heard that the SCLA fund would be supporting us and we would be able to finally create the network of indigenous nursery, which was always our dream. And I think it just, for me, especially as a professional, as a project lead, it has reassured me and my team that sometimes things will take time, but it's important that you commit to what you decided to do, even if you start smaller, that it can be amplified afterwards. And today, our commitment is to create this network and make sure that it's strong, prepared, and soon thriving. And one thing that happened to me in the first year of the CLA fund, and I've discussed that with Shelley and Lisa before, is that the SLA fund has been a very important point of change for SCLAN as an organization altogether, because it arrived at a time that we were literally running out of funds and about to shut the entire organization. And now we are, of course, in a very different moment, but just the announcement that Cambridge will be supporting us already brought new partners. So we started with the support of Live, of a clothes branding in Brazil. Now we have the support of Daughters of Earth. We have the support of Cambridge University. We are closing a very important partnership with VAG, which is a tech company that works with motors here in Brazil. And it's just this assurance that not only the SLA fund brings the resources needed for us to expand, but it has also marked our organization in terms of that we can be trusted by other partners that are now coming closer and making our institution stronger. So I think that's it. We created this symbol, the Brigada Verde, which means a green firefighter squad. So they're not only combating fires, but also now being part of restoration efforts. This circle just shows how fire integrated management policy in Brazil already contemplates the last stage of it being restoration, but there is very little funding available for that. So it's really good that third sector organizations such as SCLAN and funding such as the SLA Fund are making this possible within the policy of fire management in Brazil. Thank you very much. Obrigada. I hope I didn't run over my time. And those are just a few faces of people behind SCLAN and partners that actually make this happen for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Luciana. Yeah, just to say you have applied every year. I'm so delighted that we're able to refund you after the success of the first project. So great to hear the next phase. I'm going to move straight on to the second presentation. We can save the questions for the end. So I'm now going to welcome Aditi from which cohort? Aditi, the 2022-2023 cohort, who has a project in India. A grassland project. And again, I'm going to hand straight over to Aditi to tell you more about that. So welcome, Aditi.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. Before I start, I'd just like to introduce Manya, who's my friend and co-founder of the organization that we started 2 years ago. And I'll talk more about her and the team. I'll share my screen now. We don't have great internet, so I'd like to switch my video off if that's okay. Can you see our screen? All right, thanks, Shelley. Yeah. So our project is called Restoring 100 Hectares, Participatory Strategies for Managing Invasive Senna uniflora in Gujarat's grasslands. Before we talk about grasslands and Gujarat, I'd like to talk a bit about our team. So the group photo that you see is a little team of Conservation Indica. We are a very small NGO. We started 2 years ago. Currently, we are 2 years and 2 months old. So right next to me is Manya. This is Govind Bhai, our community engagement lead in Gujarat. That's Arumal, our social media lead, and that's our ornithologist, Hardik. And on the right, you can see my brilliant cohort mates, Sandeep ji and Alvina, and Brunmai from 2021 cohort. All of them have been incredibly helpful in the proposal development. And for this particular project, they would also act as our advisors and review committee members. We'll be doing reviews every 6 months, but I'll talk about that more in the next slides. So coming back to grasslands, this is where we are located in western part of India in the state of Gujarat. in Surendranagar district, and the administrative block is called Chotila. So in India, the administrative definitions of grasslands are quite different. There are designated grazing lands for cattle, which are locally known as gauchar in Gujarati language. Then there are privately owned lands, which are known as VDs. And there are some that are called reserve forests, which are under the forest department, which is the administrative agency of the government for an individual state. And there are also fallow lands, which are under a different part of the government department. Now, grasslands can look very different. For example, this is a socio-ecological landscape overall in the grasslands where we work. And agro-pastoralism is practiced over there. And the community that practices agro-pastoralism as a collective term, they are known as the Maldharis. And they are formed of subgroups like Rabaris, Bharwar, Charan, and Koli. This in the picture is Wala Kaka. We have worked closely with him. He has around 40 or 50 goats. So this is a picture of how a typical grassland looks over there. But this is also how it can look, where you can see that agriculture is happening on the side and a grazing path is along where agriculture is practiced. And this is Manya with herding some goats. The private grassland could also look like this, where you can see grasses, and these are the blue bulls, locally known as nilgais, grazing. These are wildlife. And the grasslands can also look like this in summer or winter or in autumn, not in the rainy season. And this is the grazing land which I was talking about, which is a designated government land, common land, which is supposed to be used for grazing. But unfortunately, you can see that it is full of monoculture. And this particular plant here is known as Senna uniflora. It's a South American annual herb, which, based on our interviews with the people there, told us that it came 5 years ago with fodder accidentally, and now it has dominated the grazing land. So you can see that the land that is supposed to be used for grazing is not really offering grass that can be grazed upon. And that's how this project came into being. But before that, we did a couple of participatory studies with the Madharis, the pastoralists over there. We did camera trapping and we did vegetation surveys. Both of them were informed by the pastoralists themselves. And we had really interesting results because we're also working on conflict caused by leopards who are attacking goats, sheep, and calves in the region. The locations where the camera traps were supposed to be placed were informed by the Maldharis, the pastoralists. And that's how we structured the entire study. Similarly, the grasses, their names, whether they are palatable, whether they are not palatable, was informed by the people themselves. These are the results of the camera trapping. 9 mammals we captured, including vulnerable Indian leopard and the near-threatened striped hyena. And the results of the vegetation survey were that we found 111 native species of grasses, herbs, and shrubs. They have cultural uses, they have indigenous medicinal uses. We also found Senna uniflora and Lantana camera that are invasive. The first picture is of Senna uniflora, a close-up picture of that. And in the middle, you can see Lantana camera, which the goats don't feed upon. And the last picture, the third picture, is of Senna uniflora dominating an entire hillock of the grazing land. This is the other side of the same hillock. And I'd like to point out that there is no structured management strategy for Senna uniflora currently, which is why we proposed this pilot project. Because it is a socio-ecological landscape where agro-pastoralism happens, this is not an isolated problem because it causes fodder security, it displaces native flora, there is intensified human-wildlife conflict, and bird habitats are also disturbed. So it all ties together with livelihoods, people, wildlife, birds. You can see an Indian gazelle, Chinkara, trying to make its way through thickets. This is a camera-trapped image, and there is nothing in this area for it to feed upon. And that's how the objectives of this project were born. We identified areas in 5 different villages, totaling up to 100 hectares, which we thought that we can restore, we can remove the Senna uniflora and work towards replacing native grasses. For that, a dedicated grass nursery with the forest department would be created. We already have their support. And because we want to involve people, as it is a people's problem and they reached out to us in the first place, we want to work with the biodiversity management committees, BMCs, which are statutory bodies that were created under the umbrella of CBD and an Indian law called the Biological Diversity Act 2002. One BMC is supposed to be there in every village. So in our 5 villages also, there's one in one village, and in other 4 villages, we will create the BMC along with the people and the village councils and work through them. We'll also develop a monitoring protocol for grassland restoration, which currently does not exist. And all of this will feed into policy advocacy for grassland conservation, because it might be the same in your countries also, that forests and green thick forests have more priority for conservation rather than grasslands. In India, they're often classified as scrublands or wastelands. So we really want all of this to fill that gap in literature and in policy. These are the 5 work sites that we identified in red that you can see. These totally form the 100 hectares together. So you can see that it covers 5 villages, and it's not a contiguous patch, but it is there in different grazing lands. It is overlapping different kinds of administrative land types also. Now over to Manya. Like I was saying, we have been friends since many, many years, and we started Conservation India together 2 years ago with the objective of working with the community and elevating their knowledge and making sure that research benefits people in ways that are meaningful to people. She's also a botanist by training, so she knows much more about me, about much more than me about grasses, plants. So yeah, over to her.
Thank you, Aditi. Hello, everyone. So the objectives that we have proposed, the methodology goes like this. So with participatory approach, with the consultations in all these 5 villages, and after having a consensus of what are the priority areas of restoration, we have selected 100 hectares of grasslands to be restored. And last year, we made a baseline of the floral diversity, richness, vegetation cover of the grasslands. Now, when we create biodiversity management committees, the committees are supposed to create detailed people's biodiversity registers, which acts as a baseline of the area. So what we are going to do, we are going to work closely with the committees to create a baseline which will have parameters like species diversity, density, richness, biomass productivity, and soil health. These are the parameters that we will be working on. And while we will be 100 hectares of the grasslands to restore them, we are also going to take a patch of control grasslands where no intervention would be made, to have a comparative monitoring protocol to see the impacts of intervention. The third thing that is crucial in the restoration project is development of a grass nursery. So when we are saying that 69% of the grassland is covered by invasive weed like senna, the diversity of the grasses have declined drastically, and there are many early successors species in the grasslands which tend to become locally invasive later on. So to eliminate that, we need to have a robust native perennial grassland specialist species that can help revive and nurture the grasslands. Forest department, in this case, the government body, is in alignment with our idea, and they have collaborated and they have provided their infrastructure and have been gracious enough to allow us to create a grass nursery, because up until now in Gujarat, the state that we are working in, there are designated forest nurseries, only tree species, not a single grass nursery as of now. So this is also going to be a very big step towards grassland restoration in India. And for monitoring and adaptive management, like I said, the baseline would be created. Those parameters will be the parameters for comparative analysis and also annual monitoring of the impacts. Now we have also logged in ecological monitoring, social monitoring, and
Nursery monitoring.
Nursery monitoring. For social monitoring, because all the processes will be done with the village committees, there are monetary aspects to be looked at. Then there are aspects of employment generated for restoration of grasslands and record keeping of the same. And with all that, a lot of governance structure that needs to come in to see what kind of monitoring is happening, how community is participating, who is getting the wage, who is benefiting from the program. This kind of records, uh, uh, a baseline for this kind of monitoring would also be made in collaboration with us. So we know what impact is happening. And like Aditi suggested, that the alumni core group would form the advisory and review committee, which will review the project every 6 months to adapt or make changes in the protocols if need be. So yeah, this is largely the methodology of the project that we will be taking.
So Manya has earlier done a pilot where the senna plants were removed, and based on that, we thought that this could be piloted at a larger scale because her experiment found that species richness had risen and productivity had also risen by 3.5 fold. This is a picture of a leopard in the Senna uniflora thicket. So we do see wildlife within moving within this invasive species, but because of lack of studies we can't exactly say how it has impacted wildlife. So these are roughly our outputs and the impact that we want to see from this project. We've, I think, talked about all of this, so we won't repeat it, but we want to stress that our project is working towards recognition of grasslands as an important ecosystem, and we want to showcase this pilot as something that will happen in Gujarat, but is demonstratable across India and possibly in other savanna semi-arid landscapes across the world. Yeah, and that's it from us. I just also want to add that these are terrible times in the world, so it's really nice to have a community like the UCLAN supportive, because sometimes it can feel pretty pointless with all that's happening in the world. So yeah, thank you for being there. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, Aditi. I totally agree. This community is what is keeping us going here in Cambridge as well at the moment. So really value you all. In the interest of time, I'm going to hand straight over to the third project. So I'm going to hand you over to Mariam from the 2021-2022 cohort. Her project is in Mexico. So over to you, Mariam.
Thank you, Shelly. And first of all, thank you all of you for joining. I know it's weird to be joining on a Wednesday, but I really appreciate to seeing all your faces today. And what an honor to be awarded this fund with these other two projects, which are amazing. So thanks for sharing the space. And well, our project is called Bossing Coexistence, strengthening strategies and capacity in Mexico for coexistence with wildlife in a changing climate. So I want to give a little bit of context before. The project is set in the Mayan jungle, especially in the reserve of Calakmul, which is our largest rainforest in Mexico. And it is part of the Mayan jungle. I think it's the majority of the Mayan jungle. And the Mayan jungle, it's important because it's the second biggest tropical rainforest reserve after the Amazons in the Americas. So it is a huge wildlife hotspot, and it's one of the few places that we still have loads of wildlife. So in this context, the Mayan, especially the Calakmul, in comparison with the rest of the peninsula of Mexico, where when you close your eyes, you probably think about the cenotes or like the blue Caribbean or like the water availability that it's very characteristic in the region. Calakmul is very different because the whole water reserves depend on seasonal rainwater. So what is happening right now with climate change is that we don't see less water in terms of rain, but we see that the raining patterns are being altered. So we are having longer drought seasons and shorter rainy seasons. And with the longer drought seasons, we are seeing that the water bodies are drying faster, which makes wildlife look for water everywhere where they can find it. In this picture, you can see a mother ocelot, because why not, with a little cute cub ocelot looking for water in these rock cavities that in Spanish are called sartenejas, which are an example of like where wildlife will usually find water in these areas. So you can imagine when the heat gets quite strong and these places dry out, basically they run out of water in kilometers and kilometers of forest. So this is creating like a secret conflict because most of conflicts in Mexico that are known are livestock predation by jaguars or pumas, where you will see the typical conflict being a cow eaten by a jaguar, and then you'll have managers and insurance coming to help out. But I will say that a quite big theme of climate change and conflict are beekeepers. And beekeepers are a major stakeholder in this problem because most of the land tenure in Mexico is owned by communities. So we have the protected area, which is Calakmul, but in reality, there's way more forest owned by communities that it's owned but not necessarily exploited. And beekeepers are, this is always used like stewards of conservation, but in this scenario, they really are, because by doing beekeeping, they are protecting the forest and they're preventing other activities to happen in those like pristine patches of forest that are non-officially part of the reserve, right? So we really need them to be happy and to keep doing their productive activities because they really are preserving the forest by doing beekeeping. And one of the, let's say, craziest conflicts that I have encountered in my life, it's what is happening with them, because they have a very unique technique to produce honey in this region. And if you can see, you will see this like little bucket of water. It's made of concrete. And they put these buckets of water under the beehives for two reasons. One is to provide water for the bees to drink during the dry season, and also to prevent insects like ants to get inside the hives and eat their production. So what happens, it's like when wildlife, like the small cats, like the ocelots, the jaguars, or the tapirs that are huge mammals, they're looking for water anywhere. They find these little buckets and they're like, this is my chance to refresh. And sometimes they drink until it's completely dry, or they try to get inside of the little buckets and then they break the hives, and that's an economic loss for the beekeepers. So fortunately, Carlos, who is in the call and it's also part of this project, and I have been working on this project since 2002, and we realized that we could help the beekeepers by installing rain capturing systems. So we decided to start building like these very straightforward little, I don't know, sorry, I'm fasting, so my synapses is very slow today. But like these little roofs that collect water from the rain, and basically it's all stored in these 5,000-liter tanks. And that provides enough water for two main sources. One is for the beekeepers to use for their production, and also to feed artificial water drinkers that we install in strategic areas in their parcels to deter the wildlife to approach to the hives. And it's been very successful. We started with just a couple, and now we have 15 families working with us. And all of them are not only receiving the infrastructure, but they also receiving capacity on like subproduct production of honey, and they're also being trained on camera trapping, and we have a very good relationship with them. And most importantly, we have seen a decrease in the conflict, in the perceived conflict. So also jaguars are approving of the solution. And I just like you to hear the ASMR of them drinking water. So we have been also monitoring these for a while with camera traps. This was just a brief monitoring that we did the first year of the pilot project. And you can see that then we saw a decrease of the animals using the hives, and then we saw an increase of them using the water throws or the water drinkers that we installed. And it's been also very successful, not only on the carnivores, but also on the preys that are visiting these sites. And we're gonna have a small presentation on the SSC coming next April. Carlos is gonna be presenting the results of our monitoring. So if you're interested in the data and ecological part of the project, you're more than welcome to join his talk. But really something that we have encountering a lot in the field is like, how can we actually make this project self-sustainable? Because of course we understand that we have funding to provide the rain capturing systems, but how can we transition from a community-based project to a community-led project where we will see the beekeepers creating a community and creating their own channels and resources for themselves to be managing the conflict within their communities, which is something that we don't see very often in human-wildlife conflict strategies. And I think it's something that all human-wildlife conflict strategies should incorporate so we can consider long-term sustainability, right? And that's exactly why we applied it to the SCL fund. And we are looking to three main objectives. We're looking forward to foster sustainability through developing these strategies of exiting strategies, that's how they're called. We're also looking forward to build capacity, because something that we see a lot in Mexico is like there is an understanding of how to use insurance and how to do, the ecological side of conflict management, but there's very little implementation of human dimensions on resolving conflicts. And that's the most important part of human wildlife conflict, right? The human part. So that's something that we're also aiming to strengthen. And of course, if we already know that the project is working, we're not gonna try to fix or reinvent the wheel. We want to upscale what we're already doing, trying to have more people having these systems in their parcels. And we're gonna try to enhance it. If there's any other way that we can make it better for them, we will. So I know that I'm running a little bit out of time. So basically the activities, as I said, is basically running workshops so we can co-develop with the key stakeholders that are basically the people that are affected by the conflict. What are the most appropriate channels that we can incorporate to make this project self-governance in this project. And we're really, really looking forward to that. Then we are also working with the IUCN Human Wildlife Conflict and Specialist Group to develop a training in Mexico, which is going to be focused on the human wildlife conflict managers, not the people affected by the conflict, but the people that usually intervene to attend that conflict. Because as we said, we think that at the moment, the way that these things are done in Mexico are pretty much on a very basic level in many aspects, but we want to start reshaping the paradigm of how to assess these and make it more holistic and sustainable in the long term. And there is a lot of things that we can learn from each other and work towards that in all levels of governance, from NGOs to governments and also private sectors. And of course, we want to keep installing more wildlife drinkers and install more rain capturing systems. So I'm just gonna the outputs are basically what I just explained, but I think one of the biggest outputs that we will have is the methodology to develop this exit strategy, because we were doing some desk research and there's really nothing on how to do an exit strategy less so a successful exit strategy to transition the ownership of the project, while it is also fair on the cost distribution and the financial burden of coexisting with wildlife. So I'm very excited to discover this through this grant and having this roadmap towards that exit strategy, which will be very helpful for us because we really want to see this project have a complete circle in its completion. And of course, I think one of the most important things is that we're going to have a national level training. We already have the partnerships like in place to do that and have enough people to join us in this paradigm shift, or at least to pickle a little bit their brain and install the human dimension seed in their decision making. And yes, of course, we would like to have 10 more families benefited from this technology. And this wouldn't be possible without our Possum team, which I think that's the strongest part of collaborating with alumni, because I think having different perspectives and also different expertise is gonna make this project very strong, because of course, Carlos and I already know that what works, but we really needed the expertise from Mariana, who works already in a lot of governance and high level engaging with private sector. So she has like that perspective of how to think about the finances, of how to make it sustainable. And then Mariana, and then Ines, who has a lot of expertise on working with communities and how to integrate the human dimensions properly and according to the context, right? So that's exactly what we needed, and we're very happy to have like this side of social science incorporated in the project. And yeah, I think that you're more than welcome to come see the project whenever you want. We're always looking for volunteers and for people to just come and know Mexico. And gracias for your attention. That's all on me.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Yeah, very much hoping to come and see you in the jungle. And yeah, absolutely lovely to see what the SCLA Fund means to people and all of those alumni collaborations. What I really love about the 3 projects that we've heard from is that they've already got the community at the heart of the project. So yeah, whilst very different, yeah, very similar in so many ways. We are, as always, overrunning, but I think if people are happy to stay around, it'd be great to take a couple of questions. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, please do bring yourself off mute and ask any of the 3 project leads any questions you have. Any questions? Maybe not. Maybe everyone was so thorough. People have been stunned into awe and silence.
Can I, not a question, but it's just a comment, Shelley, because I put it in the chat, and I think maybe it could also help people jumping in the conversations, that I was really happy to see that there is concern for other biomes rather than forest in other geographies as well. Because I think that someone working in the Pantanal wetlands in general, we see that most of the financing mechanisms of international collaborations, of everything, all the attention is focusing and more shifted towards forests, and we know forests need help as well, but especially here in Brazil, we see a big phenomenon of deforestation shift, in which impacts are now moving from forests that are better regulated, better funded, better protected, to other biomes. So it was interesting to see that this is not only in Brazil, but in other geographies, and that there are alumni that is concerned about this as well. And yeah, just a comment, and I guess just happy that it's happening in other places too.
Thank you, Luciana. I can see Stephen, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a big pleasure listening to the 3 ladies presenting a very great work, and I was very excited hearing. And definitely, I was not surprised that there were not many questions. Well, first of all, I mean, conservation is about people, and most of the conservation is really where local people are. I think one thing we know about local people is that they take time, at least from the part of the world where I come from, they take time to adopt new ways. And sorry, I don't have enough information about the projects, but we really want to know what mechanisms have you put in place to give the local people enough time to slowly, organically adapt to the new ideas that you're bringing up. Thank you.
Do you want me to go? Yeah, just because I have it on top of my mind. I think there's never like a clear pathway because it always depends on the context and the communities that you're working with. But what really worked for us is being able to pilot the strategy with a few people that were like directly affected by the conflict and haven't received any type of attention. So the fact that we immediately provided a solution to their problem instead of like making them go through like tons of research before providing them the solution to their problem was very helpful for them to open up with us. And then they immediately also started recommending us with their neighboring community. So also it was kind of organically built because now they are also recommending others that are suffering the same conflict to reach out to us. So it's been a bit organic and it's prioritizing what they need over what we want to obtain, right? So sometimes if we need to put the water throats before we even put the camera traps, obviously we assess a little some things before to not put the wildlife at risk, but we try to do that before anything else.
Excellent.
And giving continuous support, sorry, I feel like that's very important because we also check on them quite constantly. So they don't feel like, oh, they just came here and they left. No, we keep engaged.
Very nice. I'm looking forward to one day visiting your project. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump in. So I think for us, it's not only changing practices, that's not the main focus, but I think that what we did with the pilot was to identify a community that was already interested in restoration. So that had some sort of initiative, that had the drive, because especially for a pilot, where you are likely to encounter many challenges because it's the first time that you're doing something, I think it's very important to find like a more mature ecosystem, even if it's not ready ecosystem in the sense of like the people and the local society that you're working with. And then after that, and especially now that the project is thriving, we just started receiving requests from so many other communities that this also helps us to identify, what parameters are we looking for based on the experience and challenges we had in the pilot. But definitely agree with you, Tiffany. The people is the biggest challenge always because you're talking about specific cultural background and ways of life and living. So very good.
Excellent. Thank you.
DT, I don't know if you guys want.
In our case, it's kind of the opposite. The problem was brought to our attention by the people, by the communities, because they graze their livestock on the grass, and that the problem was directly affecting fodder security. And the solution was also partly given by the people, where they said it just has to be removed, but it shouldn't be removed with chemicals because that will affect everything, including the soil. So the least thing that we are doing is the monitoring, where we are using satellite imagery to compare 3 years data and all. That's the only new thing that we are doing with the community. Everything else is their traditional ecological knowledge.
Excellent. Thank you. Shelley, I also like it that, sorry, I'm not being a chauvinist, but I also like it that ladies are leading all these projects. I'm very, very impressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. We were commenting on this before everyone arrived, actually. And I have to say, out of the 17 projects that we received in the 5th round of the SCLA fund, 16 of those projects were led by women. So we were saying we've either got a real issue in that women are really struggling to get funding, or we've got a lot of committed women who are accessing this kind of fund. So yeah.
This is good, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, delighted with the projects that have been funded.
Sure. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think as it's 2 minutes to 5, I'm going to bring this discussion to a close. But it just oh, hang on, we've got a message from Michael in the chat. Michael, I don't know if you want to come off mute and raise this before I close out.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you all for the amazing presentations. It was so lovely to see your amazing work and everything that's going on there. And sorry if I might just pop in this question. I was just thinking, is it in your experience for all the presenters, I see some amazing work on coexistence. Is it possible that the communities that we're working with, I gave an example in the chat that I work with agro-pastoralists, but they fail to realize that soon they will destroy all the environment that they depend on. So I was just thinking out loud that is it possible for people to stop the actions or stop what they're doing before they've lost the environment, or we have to go through that process, losing everything and then working together to restore it? I just wanted to hear from the presenters what they think on this. Thank you.
Yeah, Miriam, go first.
Well, if you want to go first, Aditi, I'm happy to wait.
All right, thanks. We started our work with agro-pastoralists.
Yeah.
And so in our experience, their traditional ways of working with nature are not harmful. Instead, the projects that are coming up on grazing lands, infrastructure projects, green projects that appear to be green, like wind turbines, solar power plants that are built on their grazing lands, pose more of a problem. And Manya, would you like to add?
Yes. So what we have realized, the pastoralists, the agro-pastoralists are pushed to a corner. You encroach upon their grazing lands. You build industries. You mine the land. To the industrialist, but more and more about how communities overgrazing. So this what has been the way of life for over 500 years, which has co-evolved with the ecosystem and is attuned to the seasonal changes. So these are semi-nomadic, nomadic communities, right? And they maximum out of a land which gets not even 100 of rainfall. So even for a semi-arid desert grassland, they maximize the output and they contribute to the economy as well. So it's not something that they have no for agro-pastoralists, that they are not part of an integral ecosystem as well. So what largely is happening is we are trying to shift the blame to the community, rather asking real important question to the
More powerful actors.
Powerful actors.
Interesting.
And I was just gonna briefly share that I think that in other cases, it's also a cumulus of actions, because the people that we work with, particularly before they became beekeepers, they were engaged on unsustainable practices like livestock keeping in an area that it's not adapted for livestock. And when there was some governmental aid to help them transition to beekeeping, they immediately realized that it was more productive and less of an economic effort and time-consuming matter to transition to this more like sustainable production activity than being engaged in livestock practices. So I think that also having like the support systems there needed, because it was not only like sponsored by the government, it was also sponsored like by private equity from Microsoft, that they're investing in biodiversity credits. They realized that they could make more money by conserving the land than by engaging on unsustainable practices. And then they started to realizing that there were other things that they were not paying attention, like the conflicts that they had, that then they were open to understand the solutions to engage with instead of going into retaliation. So
Mm.
yeah, I think it's a lot of teamwork also with other stakeholders that are in the area, and also gaining a lot of the trust of the community so they can trust the process and eventually see the difference between one practice and another themselves.
All right, nice. Thanks. Thanks for that.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. I will bring this to a close now. Yeah, it just goes to say thank you, a huge thank you to the project and the leads for presenting to us today. And I'm really looking forward to seeing these projects flourish and the lessons learned, because I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned that we can apply across the UCLAN. Yeah, good luck to you all. We're here for you in Cambridge if you need us. If you need to draw on the UCLAN, you know where to come. So yeah, good luck. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of day. Take care, and we will see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shelley, Shan, thank you, and
Thank
everyone
you,
else. Hope to meet
Shelly.
you
Thank
people
you,
someday.
everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.